When you're bored, that's the face you make. You maybe apply it to others, not just me.
I don't get bored. I really don't. Boredom is not something that's in my vocabulary. I don't get bored.
Your mind is wandering.
Wandering is good.
Yeah, I agree.
That's imagination. I don't get bored. Really? Do you get bored?
No, I don't get bored.
I can't think of a time to where I'd like to be bored. That'd be cool. Just sitting still that means that maybe you're getting some peace and rest or, from the hamster wheel. I don't know. I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but I can't recall being bored.
It does make sense. I would say the closest thing I could maybe get to being bored, which is a terribly wrong word, and that's not the word that I mean, would be when I'm sitting in a tree stand and there is nothing for me to do, meaning I can't go do any of the projects. I can't check off any of the to-do list. I can't.
But isn't that great?
Yes. Yes, and that's what I was getting at. Boredom's not the right word. There's always a to-do list a mile long that I could tackle at any moment. But
that's
I think
more of a reprieve.
Yeah, I think hunting is hey, look, there's only one way to go about this, and it's with gobs of patience. And this forces me to sit still and focus on my surroundings and
it's a great time for prayer.
And don't move. Oh, man. Joshua 1:8.
Read it.
Moving on.
Don't put the widget on your phone that you're not going to read.
So, big victory, local news. The Guana,
people win.
The people win in a rare moment in time in history. The people have stopped a land grab or a land swap in this case, and the Guana River Preserve has been saved from development, allegedly.
For
now. And that's what we're going to get into today. So, do you want to fill us in on the history of what's gone on here in the last couple days?
This is going to be in your wheelhouse. Listen, I will say this. I have driven through there. I've spent a little bit of time hunting in there with my friend Drew a while back. My son hunts in there. The duck hunts in there. I know you hog hunt in there. My son has also done that. I know Drew has as well. A lot of hunting. I've walked in there a couple times, done a little trailing, but it's not something I've used a lot. I have driven by there going to Ponte Vedra so many times going, this is the target. Not even, this came to me yesterday. Not even realizing, our conversations and where they're going. But I'm like, look at all of this oceanfront property and look at this beautiful estuary, and how is this still here? Okay, and that's really all I really know about Guana. Now, I would like to be filled in on the actual thing. It was a land swap for some godforsaken other swamp. Mitigation, I guess, if you will, if that's the right word. So, that's all I know. And it comes on the heels of our first pilot episode where we talked about stuff. So,
yeah,
this is something you're versed in because you have. Anyway, that's all I have to say about it, other than the fact that I think it's cool that there is victory to be had. There's a feather in the cap for actually people standing up to something that they think is wrong, BS, invasive, whatever, and winning.
Yeah.
For the moment.
I
will continue to say for the moment.
Right. So, we were here a year ago. I won't deflect off too much, but, roughly a year ago where they tried to land grab all the state parks and develop most of the state parks in Florida. And there was massive public outcry. And thankfully, most of that got stifled, but they're still fighting that. And so it's just a matter of time before these things happen again. And so here we are, St. Johns County, we were facing Anastasia State Park. And now here we are with Guana. And this one's a little different because it's a preserve. Back in 1984, obviously taxpayer dollars, they put this into conservation that was supposed to be in perpetuity. But here we are facing, hey, somebody wants to swap it out under a last minute LLC formed with, very little notice to go before the approval committee. And they get wind of it from somebody that kind of leaks the info to state representative's office, and they go into motion and they get the word out, and then public gets a hold of it, and the wheels are in motion now to stop it. And I actually am wondering if it even got stopped, because what I mean by that is that they withdrew their proposal. It wasn't stopped through the process. They withdrew their proposal due to public outcry. Mm-hmm. They didn't want the heat. And the whole thing was shrouded in mystery, right? They still don't have a name attached to who it is that owns Upland LLC. And there's all sorts of history and speculation about,
I thought there was some 4 names that were on that. Were they fictitious names?
So the only name that they've tracked it down to is
a law firm?
A law firm.
Okay.
Right. And so the address to the law firm goes to the people that own the outpost, which is the roughly 100 acres adjacent to this proposed 600 acres. And now it's a new LLC under another LLC that there isn't a name on it when you go on, the Sunbiz website and stuff. And so there's just all this mystery. And they were allegedly proposing that they had no intentions of developing it, that they were going to just be stewards of the 600 acres, which is crazy. I mean, you've developed a piece of property or two. Have you ever bought a piece of property and said, I'm just going to be a good steward, without thinking, I'm going to build something on this? And
well, my tracts are so small, other than my personal land that I have.
Yeah.
But for business purposes, I'm stewarding my business, because my tracts are so small. They have a purpose, and the land size is based on that purpose.
Right.
And so, it's a business adventure. Period.
Yeah. And every one of us watching this episode and sitting here, we all live in a developed piece of land. We all live on a developed track. We all benefit from development to some degree. Now we'll get into that maybe a little bit later. What's the ratio of conservation to development? Because we need development, right? You want to live in a house, you're going to have to develop that piece of land, and guess how many critters lived on that land, and so on and so forth. But this was clearly allocated as conservation, as preservation in 1984. And that's meant to be a permanent status with our taxpayer dollars. So that means back in 1983, leading into 84, they were advocating for, hey, we're going to use your tax dollars to do X, Y, and Z. Now, fast forward a few decades. Okay, we lied back then. We're switching what we're doing with your money. The money back then was used for that, but now we're going to swap it off and and all is lost, for that piece of property and that spending. And they get to just swap it and sell it as they see fit. And I am glad in this case that it didn't get to the process, because I would worry about the process maybe not holding the line, meaning which commissioners, who gets to vote on developing it or swapping it, and they say yes because they're in the pocket, right? The corruption we always talk about. This was a good one in the sense that it didn't even get that far. They withdrew their proposal.
So the proposal goes in. Who does it go to first? The DEP or the FWC?
This was all going to DEP first.
So when did the FWC have to get involved? And didn't they stamp it first and it can go to the
I don't think FWC ever had a say in it. I think, as far as I know, they only manage elements of it, right? Like controlled burning, some of the wildlife components, right? But FWC is one of the steward of it, but I don't think they would sign off on the swap itself. I don't think they have the say in the swap itself, is what I'm getting at.
So the Department of Environmental Protection does?
I think that was going to be their first stop.
Okay. I thought it was vice versa. I don't know why I thought that.
I'd have to dig into that if I'm wrong, if I've missed a step. I mean, it got announced so quickly that all anyone knew was that the first stop was the DEP and so on. So I don't think we ever heard about a previous step, and that's one of the problems with this sort of thing, right? These last second, oh hey, by the way, we're gonna take 600 acres
in Butler Park. Same thing was gonna happen right here.
Yeah, last second announcement.
Phase 1. Next thing you know, nobody knew about it.
Yeah,
a smaller scale.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this, I found a news clipping from 5 years ago about the outpost, which is the 100 acres adjacent to this 600-acre proposal. And that was one of the first chips to fall.
Where is that exactly? East, northeast, southwest?
North end.
East.
North.
Or would have to be west because
west.
east is the ocean.
Northwest.
And that's off of Michler.
Well, it's not quite that far up. It's south of Michler.
Okay.
Anyway, they had this, and this is what was owned by Gate Petroleum, and they sold it to the Outpost, or I think that's the name of the actual LLC, isn't it? Outpost. And then they got into the Upland LLC, so that being adjacent to that somehow gave them permission to file this swap for the 600 acres, that they needed to be adjacent to that in order to do it or something. I don't know the legalities behind it, but the point is that it's a process. There's this phase one little move that they make, and they fly it under the radar. And 5 years ago, there was outrage over Guana because they were going to develop, they were going to put 66 parcels there on that roughly 100 acres, you know? And they were claiming then, well, it's private property now, so tough cookies, right? But there's plenty of public outcry and more or less stopped that 5 years ago. But here we are 5 years later. Now they're trying to grab another 600 that would put them at over 700 acres. And they're claiming that they had no intentions of developing it, which is just asinine.
I believe them.
And yeah, I mean, what? All the developers out there, go ahead and speak up. Which 700-acre tract have you bought with no intentions of developing? You're just going to sit on it and flip the land for appreciation and hope the next guy can figure out his markup on development?
Well, this is a different. You know, this isn't like buying 6 or 7 acres and developing it in, like you said previously, if you live in a home, you live in a developed spot, no matter where it is.
Yeah.
This isn't barking at that. This is circling back on, creeping in on something that has been settled 3-4 decades ago. It's supposed to stay the same, and somebody's creeping in because it's so cool. I mean, that piece of property has, it's just like, I understand if you're a developer, you're licking your lips at that. I mean, you could, yeah.
No doubt.
But you can't have it.
Right.
You can't have it. But you still try to get it. And it'll happen again.
Yeah.
And as soon as the dust settles, and if the dust settles and you don't find out, whatever. But I think my point there is we're not pointing the finger at all developers saying you bad. You know, we're not doing that.
Not even close.
Not even close. So I know some developers who, but this is different. It's attacking something that's protected.
Right. And if this, and the dangerous part of this for me, to your point, is that
precedent.
Look, precedent. 1984, this was set aside. Hey, this is untouchable moving forward. Developers, hands off. See you later. Don't even try. Right? We're going to hold the line. That's what they convinced the taxpayers to believe. But yeah, precedent. So if they touch this, what's next? And what's after that? And what's after that? So this is definitely, for me, give them an inch, they're going to take all the miles all the time. You know, at what point, when does Yosemite National Park disappear? When does Yellowstone disappear? When do the Everglades disappear? You know, and I know that seems like an exaggeration, but man, on a long enough timeline, where does this go with this kind of precedent?
Well, there's plenty of things you can point to say that stuff will happen. You know, you give somebody a rope, they want to be a cowboy. You know, they'll keep taking and taking and taking. You know, whether it be land or whatever. You got to apply that to a lot of different things. So victory is what this is classified as. People raised enough sand and stood up to this, and they retracted their request.
Yeah.
And that's that. So
for now.
Well, did they do it just because they didn't want to be viewed as the evil one? Or did they view it in knowing that they can't overcome this? Or did somebody from somewhere up top say you can't do this and give them I don't know. How did it get debunked other than, oh, wait, we're sorry. Is that it? We just don't want the bad light on us. We're out. This is wrong. We didn't realize, we were going to upset so many people. We're sorry. So we're going to assume that that's that.
It certainly looks like that,
okay,
to some degree, based on, that's good. Hey, look, I'm going to start an LLC and I'm not going to put my name on it. Then I'm going to put another LLC under that LLC and I'm not going to put my name on it. Then at the 11th hour, 5 seconds before the decision makers get in a room together, we're going to submit our proposal so that hopefully no one catches wind of it, and so on and so forth. And upon how many dozens of media requests they've had to answer questions, they haven't. Although Gate Petroleum has been asked and answered multiple times through multiple news outlets that this isn't them. It's not any part of it. Yes, they owned the property once and they sold it to New Outpost. That's the name I couldn't come up with earlier. New Outpost LLC, which owns the Outpost, which is like the roughly 100-acre tract of land. And New Outpost then basically started this other, this Upland LLC, and just, looking through the deep research on it, you can't find the person or people involved. All it can go back to is the law firm representing.
Well, that's why I'm asking the question.
So yeah, and so they're just playing shadow games and don't want to be held to account, don't want to be responsible. They want to be shady and do a shady deal.
Okay, so they pulled out because of the goodness of their heart.
Is that what that means?
I'm asking you. I'm asking why did this? I want to know. Is it up? But if your name's not on it anywhere, and the public outcry and they're out of the goodness of your heart, you hid your name over and over and over and over again, and out of the goodness of your, look at these great people. They want this for their home. I'm going to leave them alone.
Yeah. So you're sorry, or
no. I'm playing the Brandon cynicism over here. I think it's great. I'm super happy. I'm hopeful that these folks involved said, "Wow, we've made a dramatic error."
I would love to have that conversation.
It's not the case. It can't. Do you really think that that's the case? Is my point. Am I making myself clear?
Yeah. So you're not sorry. You're sorry you got caught. Yeah.
Well, that's your perspective. That would be your perspective. That would be something you would say. Why am I saying it? I'm the one with the positive and the hope in the system.
Where's the hope, man? I killed it.
No, you can't kill it.
Hopefully not. So here's on the.
I hope I made myself clear.
Yes. How can you even consider developing a land that has like protected species on it that has been in conservation since 1984? Like, who's got the stones to even consider that? I mean, again, we talk about what's your price, and that is a prime piece of real estate, right?
You could argue that it just does not get any more prime than that.
Agreed.
I mean, man.
So the price is pretty big for this to say, yep, I don't care if I destroy indigo snake habitat, protected species, and so on and so forth. There's a pretty long list there of the value that I don't think you could put a dollar amount on for that area ecologically.
Yeah.
And how many people benefit from it. I mean, world-class fishery, how much damage you would do to that with all the fertilizer, pesticide runoff in the water. I mean, that would devastate that whole area. I mean, the trickle-down effect of that would be monumental.
The tax income would be incredible.
Yeah. Money, man, that's the upside for sure for a few key people.
If you're going to look at doing something like that and you have the stones, as you say, greed is your driver.
Your ally.
It's your driver.
Yeah.
Your ally would be other people's greed.
Yeah.
And the county or whoever else would see. I mean, that would be massive tax revenue. Can you imagine the tax revenue come from the homes that would be there?
Yeah.
But so can you hang the flag up and say, you won, we won, people won, and say, this is how you get it done?
It was great. I mean, I'm very proud in a sense to be a St. Johns County Floridian right now, in the sense that we're like 2 for 2. Anastasia State Park.
Anastasia State Park isn't over.
And you're right, it's not over, but people have rallied monumentally to oppose that. And so I think that fight's still going on. And until, I'll play a clip for you here in a little bit, our state representative is now fighting for kind of legislation to put this all to rest and get something more concrete so that we're not fighting this every 5 years, circling back to the same issue all the time. New people are on the board, new people are on a commission, new developer comes to town, and here we go again. So anyway, St. Johns County had over 50,000 names on the petition against Guana within 48 hours. I mean, that's a huge number of people to jump on board with that.
How many people live in the county? 200,000?
I don't know.
250,000?
I mean, I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
Yeah,
I hate to cheat like that, but
no, but that's a big chunk.
Yeah,
that fast. Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, they had 50,000 names, 320,110 people as of 2023.
That's insane. Because
I would say 2023 is quite outdated for this county with how fast it's growing. Anyway, 320,000 plus people, certainly.
Pre-COVID, that's 100,000 over pre-COVID, if I'm not mistaken. I'd like to see what that said. I don't want to get off on a tangent. What year is that?
Right now I'm on 2019, and it's showing 265,000.
Yeah, so
265 up to 320.
Yeah, I wasn't wrong. I was close anyway.
Yeah, and 218 only 254,000.
Anyway,
Yep.
but you hang your hat on 2 victories that that have been because people stood up. So there's hope in the system for Brandon Rahi.
Don't get carried away now. So
I love it. That's great.
Let me segue.
And who is that?
This is who I was just mentioning. Excuse me, State Representative Kim Kendall. This is this morning. This went live this morning. They addressed the victory when they had withdrawn the application. So Upland LLC withdrew their application regarding this land swap. This video is from First Coast News. This was live this morning. I edited out some pauses and some applause because it got a little long-winded in that sense. So this is her kind of celebrating the win. So play this for you.
This doesn't end here. First off, let me be clear. This land swap, in my strong opinion, does not fall under the legislation that was passed back in 2016 that addresses land swaps. It should have never been brought before the ARC. It is out of the spirit of the law for land swapping, and it's also against what we unanimously just passed in the House, which was stopping development at state parks. In my opinion, this was a workaround, and I, number one, am committed towards doing legislation. I've already talked to my staff on trying to figure out what we can button up to stop this wraparound, this workaround, find a hole, whatever can be done to try to do this again. We're going to try to button that down as hard as we can, which will also include giving more than 3 business days notice.
That's a big one.
I am very interested in their 104. So
Acres,
my
their
preferred
acreage.
method is for the state of Florida to purchase their 104 acres and put it back with Guana.
Oh, is that eminent domain?
Makes you wonder. Flip the script. Hey, developer, I'm coming for your land. You're not coming for our land anymore. And the reason she's going after the 104 is because that 104 acres is the gateway to somehow apply for this land swap proposal. Again, they had to own adjacent land. And so I love that line of thinking. Like, hey, look, let's get rid of that first chip that fell years ago, that somehow somebody acquired that 104 acres, which was owned by Gate Petroleum at one point and passed to that new Outpost LLC. So interesting. Will that lead to that? Or do they just work out a cash deal? Hey, here's your money. We don't need to go through eminent domain.
So I didn't. Interesting.
So that was just filmed, a couple hours ago.
Excuse me.
So that's very, very recent. And they had everybody up there. They had Mayor Nancy Sykes-Klein. They had, I think Clay Murphy was out there, the mayor of St. Augustine Beach. Everybody was at that same press conference. But I felt like what she's saying there was the most relevant referring to this future
Did Clay
legislation.
speak?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
Huh, that's interesting to go flip the script and then go after their land.
Right.
Huh.
So that would, instead of, right, they got one over on us, in my opinion, however many years ago to acquire the 104. So now that puts them all the way back at zero. That resets the scoreboard. They would have to get some initiating chip in order to make this kind of progress again. So I think that would put a good dent in their multi-phase plan. I like it.
You like the government taking your land?
No, I don't. Not in terms of eminent domain, which is something we can certainly discuss. But I'd have to look back at the history of how that 104 acres
I would too.
was acquired. I need to know more. I like knowing the whole context of a thing. And again,
But
I'm not
chances are, in the context, it was acquired to do something like this. Chances are, it just, these people acquire. I don't know if you go back to Gate and how they got it, but why would these people want that land if they weren't going to develop it and try to attach that to it? I don't know. It's just my first thought, but I certainly must say it's mine. You can't have it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sure.
it's my 104 acres, and
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I'm just flipping it back around to, okay, you can't. No, I'm going to take it from you.
No, I don't like that idea.
I don't. Yeah, I mean that kind of. But if it's fair market value and they can buy it and they can come to a negotiated deal, okay, that's fine.
Yep.
But if you're just going to take it now because of all this, I'm not a fan of that either.
I'm not a fan of that either.
So,
I'm not a fan either.
Yeah.
And I'm also not a fan of the government giving away the people's land. Because as far as I'm concerned, I'm viewing it as the people's land. It was paid for by taxpayer dollars with the promises that the people would own it and have access to it in perpetuity. And for that to even be considered, for someone to be able to even propose something like that is out of the question for me. And that's the part of big government that I don't like. They'll promise you something in 1984, and in 2025, pull the rug right out from under that. And they seem to do it all the time. And this is just the most recent example. And they're going to be under constant pressure. Every administration, every generation of developers are going to be at odds to fight that off. And this is why I'll full circle back to FWC, why we shouldn't have a commission for conservation filled with developers.
It's like Yellowstone Ranch. Generations of attack would take their land.
Yeah.
But I really would like to know where, because I thought I saw something where the FWC was involved and they stamped it as like, okay, go to the DEP now. I don't know. I may be wrong.
Let me see. No, that it very well could be, man. I don't know all the governmental steps for these things.
That just furthers the problem of what our developers want. But one of our biggest beefs is that particular commission. And it's become mine because of some information that you have given me and other people given me, and it's not the people, the game wardens, or all those people. I'm not criticizing them. It's those 8 developers that are running that commission. But anyway, I thought they were involved somewhere and had stamped it. Yeah, sure. You got to go talk to the DEP. But it would have been a situation where if there was someone on the board that had the right mentality of, whoa, you can't do that. FWC should have, that whole commission said, wait a minute, this is a huge wildlife preserve. People hunt and fish and use this, and this is nature preserve and all this. How are they not involved in this? I don't know.
Yeah, I just don't know I don't know how.
But they should have been.
They should have been.
We should have said, "Wait a second, no, you can't do this." If it was done correctly, they should have been one of the organizations, if not the preeminent organization, to say, "No, you can't develop this. This is protected for these reasons."
Right. Even if they weren't involved as a committee that needed to approve or sign off on it or pass it along, they should have jumped in, gotten involved for the sake of conservation. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think that's what it's kind of sort of supposed to do.
I'll watch them circle back around and say, yeah, we opposed it. We told them they could not do that.
That wouldn't surprise me at all. The FWC has provided a memo regarding their concurrence with the exchange. Okay, so FWC could, by that criteria, could certainly say, well, okay, yes, there's a violation of terms as per our stewardship, which I can certainly think of with protected species.
What was the first thing you read, though?
It's just the premise of the exchange. Hey, we're doing a swap of land.
Okay. And the FWC knew about that?
Yep.
No, you can't do that. Says the FWC. Says they should say. No. Even though this premise is right, this is whatever. I don't know. Seems like to me they could have possibly seen it and stopped it and just said, let's see what happens. Same thing I'm going back is you blanket and you target all this stuff. Let's see what happens. See if the people actually rise up. See if they'll try and protect it. If they don't, then we'll just move forward.
Yeah.
Remember we talked about that?
Yeah.
They knew about this. This wasn't something they didn't know about.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah. Only the public finds out about this last minute.
Yeah.
They absolutely have heads up on all of this. They've got all these charts and maps and proposals. Who knows how long in advance?
Yeah.
Yep. And this is the same thing we talked about. Yeah. On the federal level with bills. Here we go. Here's a memorandum from, this is on FWC letterhead. Proposed land exchange. Land exchange proposal has been received by the FWC requesting 600 acres, blah, blah, blah. Including, they go on to describe the types of acreage, mesic flatwoods, hardwoods, wet prairie, mixed scrub wetlands, and so on. Yeah, I haven't read all this. I would have to read all this to
Might just
try to summarize all that.
Is they
Yeah.
knew about this.
Anyway, they're in the know. So to your point, right? FWC is in the know. They've received the request and they're passing along their thoughts via memo to the powers that be. And it sounds like they're just reiterating it, but I don't know what their power is. However, regardless of power, they absolutely should, as a conservation committee, pass along their concerns scientifically regarding conservation. Mm-hmm. Not just like, oh, well, all right, you guys figure out the regulations and proceed accordingly because we don't have anything to do with it. You're there for conservation, so do something. Mm-hmm. Like put the 2 cents in. And it almost just sounds like they described the habitat. It's like, well, we could have Googled that.
And they just pushed it along to see what would happen.
Yep, right.
Yeah.
Rodney Bretto was just posted a picture of him golfing with DeSantis the other day. Rodney Bretto is the chair of the FWC.
That just got recently reposted or whatever.
That just got
re-upped.
Re-upped his appointment.
Yeah.
Renewed his appointment for the next term. So,
I mean, really, come on, Ron. Somebody, 8 developers. We go back to this. That's just not right. For Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission. Okay, it just can't be possible. No one is going to trust that organization that has anything to do. And this is proving that point on a different level. But that just can't be. There has to be something done about that. Has to be a dissenting opinion or it can't be all. It's just such an opposing situation. Development and conservation. And it's a conservation commission. No. It just can't happen. No one's going to give it any credibility.
Yeah.
Until the representation is changed.
Yeah.
And I don't know any of those men or women. Don't know any of them. But they are all self-determined developers for different things. Again, I'll say that one more time. No credibility will be given to those people or this commission until that changes.
That's right. I mean, I understand there's bias
Foxes
everywhere.
in the hen house.
Yep. We all have our own bias on anything that could be discussed. We know developers are going to develop, regardless of the land, right? They will pour concrete on just about anything to some degree if there's profit in it. conservationists should try to conserve, no matter what the monetary gain might be, right? And those are the opposing forces. And how do they come together to meet the right ratio? I hinted at this earlier. To what's the right ratio of conservation to development? You know, is it based on the areas? Is it based on the ecological sensitivity? Is it based on protected species? Is it based on just supply and demand? Hey, look, everybody wants to move to the coast. What is it, like 90% of humans live within X miles of the coast or something? It's like a crazy ratio all over the world, but there's so much land that hasn't been touched, and they want to go after because it's so freaking profitable and so desirable. They want to go after these absolute nuggets that are supposed to be set aside for conservation. And like, I just feel like we have very little defense against it. And I do not consider myself a tree hugger by any means, by any stretch of the imagination. But I'd like to think that through my lifetime, I will see certain nuggets retained as protected jewels for the long haul.
Because if it's not, it's gone.
Once it's gone, it's gone.
Once it's gone. Once it's developed, it's over.
Yeah.
There's no tearing it all down and going back and putting in a 300 or 400 yard, whatever tree. But point being is just one conservationist would be a good start, or one person that is not a developer. One. Again, I am newly educated on that, and I think it's garbage.
Yeah. That is such low-hanging fruit, right? On a conservation commission that we don't have even approaching a 50-50 split on opinions or bias. You know, it's not even close. It's like 100-0 in favor of the developers. How can that be? I genuinely don't understand it. I just don't get it. Don't get it. Such low hanging fruit, such a simple thing, right? Hey, look, if I've got X amount of board members, I'm going to try to be as judicious about this process as possible. We need some voices from developers here to try to aid progress, if you call it that. And then we need some people that are trying to hold back that kind of progress. And
it goes back into the appointing.
Yeah.
And then the passing along of said appointee. But let's talk about our victory today. People won.
The people. And I would say this was the people, not
100%.
This didn't make it.
It was very organic and it exploded.
Yeah.
And then bam. And it works. This is proving that it works. And it was no, so.
Yeah, that is a victory. So congratulations to St. Johns County and all the people that got involved, that shared the social media posts, that shared the news outlets, that jumped on and signed a petition and took action. I know there was a big, like a protest rally up on A1A at Mickler Landing that day. What day was that? Saturday, which was smoking hot that day. So congratulations to everyone that got involved. I know this was a heartfelt victory for you guys, and
so you can prevent awesome. The same old.
In an attempt to prevent the same old. Can't believe they withdrew the proposal, man. Can't believe it. I thought they'd go through with it regardless of all that. They were so shrouded in mystery, but man, it was enough heat that they didn't want it. Mm-hmm. They didn't want the smoke. Not saying something. So congrats. Awesome. Anything else you want to go over today? I know we kind of came in wanting to touch on that local pressing news when that just got released. So that was
not really. There's multiple other things that are going on, but this is local and informative and cool, and it's newly educational to me as far as the people involved and But as I said in the beginning, I've driven through there so many times, thinking, not too much longer. Because you drive when you drive up, going to Ponte Vedra, you drive up and you get from the last house, which is old school style construction, instead of till you get to Ponte Vedra, and then you get to the modern big homes. Good for them, good for you if you can have it. But there's a huge gap there of just pristine beachfront property. that they have dredged and dredged and dredged to, which costs money, lots of money to save. I'm talking about the beach side. I'm not even talking about the other side. You know?
Yeah, right.
And that dredging costs tons and tons of money, and it's a constant battle. But I have driven through there going, not for long, you know. And I thought it was coming, and this is interesting.
You're making me feel so naive, man. Every time I've gone to Guana, I mean, I go biking in there, hiking, hunting. I mean, I've been up there, I don't know how many times over the years. And I've never thought like, oh yeah, somebody's going to come in and develop this one day. Like knowing it's conservation.
The east side of A1A now.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not looking at the west side.
Okay. I've spent almost all that time on the west side.
I'm just driving down looking at that beautiful beachfront property, and then you get to that one house that starts in Ponte Vedra, and it's just bam, no, beautiful homes. You know, you can't even see them; they're up there hidden. And
yeah, beautiful place. And that's why we need to protect it.
That's why we need to protect it. Amen. So you prevent the same old, same old.
Because in Florida, this is the same old story, unless you prevent it.
Activism by Brandon Rahi.
All right, folks, go make some noise. Talk to you later.
See ya.